Tonight's story is called Have You Met Mr. Chelsea? Written by Raven Crow. So turn the lights off, get comfortable, and enjoy the tape. People in Memphis tell all kinds of stories. Some swear they've heard voices drifting across the Mississippi after midnight. Others talk about shadows that wander abandoned railroad tracks or figures that stand beneath broken streetlights until sunrise. But if you grow up in the wrong part of Memphis, eventually someone asks you the same question. Have you met Mr. Chelsea? Most people laugh. I wish I had too. The day my mother disappeared started like every other Tuesday. She was standing over the stove making pancakes, humming an old Al Green song while the morning news mumbled in the background. "You'll be late," she called without turning around. "I'm coming." I grabbed my backpack and headed towards the kitchen. She smiled the moment she saw me. "There he is." She slid a plate onto the table. "You've got STEM after school, right?" I nodded. "Yeah." "And don't skip lunch this time." "I won't." She reached over and straightened my hoodie. "You've got a bright future, Derek." I smiled. "I know." She kissed my forehead before grabbing her coffee. For the first time in a long time. She looked happy. Mom had been sober for years. Life hadn't been perfect, but she'd fought like hell to leave that part of herself behind. People still whispered. They always would. But to me, she was just Mom. School felt normal. I remember laughing with the robotics team, arguing over programming. Mr. Franklin complained that none of us labeled our wires correctly. Everything felt normal. Looking back, I don't know if any of that happened. By the time I got home, the house felt different. Too quiet. Mum sat at the kitchen table. A folded piece of paper rested beside her. She wasn't crying. That scared me more. She looked up. "Derek." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "What happened today?" "What do you mean?" The principal called. Silence. "They said Ethan Brooks is in the hospital." I frowned. "What?" "They said you attacked him." "I didn't." "They said you hit him until teachers pulled you off." "No, I didn't." She searched my face. "Derek, what do you remember?" I stared at her. "I don't know what you're talking about." Her shoulders slumped. "They removed you from STEM." "No, they didn't." "They suspended you." "No." "They're lying." She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were full of tears. "They're not lying. They said this isn't the first time. They said you've been disappearing from class. They said you sit alone in the woods behind the school." I laughed, a nervous laugh. "Mom, I was literally in robotics today." She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into a purse and pulled out a folded appointment card. "I made you an appointment." I looked down. "Behavioral health." "What is this?" "I think someone can help." "I don't need help." "I think you do." I said I don't need help. The words echoed through the kitchen. She flinched. Immediately. I hated myself for yelling. She took one careful step toward me. "I'm not against you. I'm your mother. I'm trying to save you. I don't need saving." "You don't remember, Derek. I remember everything." "No." Her voice cracked. "You remember what your mind lets you remember." The room went silent. Then, everything blurred. That night, I woke to the smell of cigar smoke. The hallway light was on. "Mom?" No answer. I climbed out of bed. The house felt strangely empty. The kitchen light glowed softly. The back door stood open. Warm summer air drifted through the curtains. Grey ash floated lazily through the room. Not dust, ash. One flake, then another, then another. They landed without a sound. At the head of the table sat a man in a charcoal suit. Perfect posture. White dress shirt, black tie. A lit cigar rested between two fingers. The ember glowed. He never raised it to his lips. He simply smiled. A smile so wide it looked painful. "Who are you?" He tilted his head. "You don't remember me." "What?" A quiet chuckle escaped him. "That's all right." He stood, straightened his jacket. The cigar burned lower. More ash drifted to the floor. "People around here." He looked toward the open back door. "Call me Mr. Chelsea." I turned and ran. I threw open the hallway door. The kitchen. I opened another. The kitchen. Another. The kitchen. Every room led back to him. He never chased me. He didn't have to. He was always waiting. Finally, I screamed, "Where's my mom?" His smile disappeared. For the first time. His face was completely still. He walked toward me, slowly, deliberately. He grabbed my jaw and forced me to meet his eyes. "Look at me." I tried to pull away. I couldn't move. His smile returned, wider than before. "At last." He leaned closer. "I've been waiting for you." Then he screamed, not words, just one impossible, deafening scream that swallowed the entire house. I woke up gasping. My bedroom was dark. My heart pounded against my ribs. It was just a dream. I whispered it until I almost believed it. Then I smelled it. Cigar smoke. I looked toward my bedroom door. A thin trail of grey ash rested across the hardwood floor. The smell of cigar smoke lingered long after Derek opened his eyes. His chest rose and fell in uneven breaths as he stared at the ceiling. It was a dream. He whispered the words more to convince himself than anything else. The bedroom was quiet. Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds. Everything was normal. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. His bare foot landed in something gritty. Derek looked down. A thin streak of grey ash stretched across the hardwood floor from his bedroom door to the hallway. He frowned. "What?" He knelt and rubbed it between his fingers. Ash. He looked toward the hallway, empty. No smell, no smoke, no man. He shook his head and wiped the ash away with the sleeve of his hoodie. By the time he stood back up, the ash was gone. The kitchen television buzzed with the morning news. Marcus sat at the table scrolling through his phone while Vanessa poured coffee into a mug. Neither of them acknowledged Derek. "You gonna stand there all morning?" Marcus muttered without looking up. Derek ignored him. "Any news?" Marcus shrugged. "No." "You call anybody?" "No." "The police?" Marcus finally looked up. "For what?" "My mom." Marcus let out a tired laugh. "Derek, she'll come back when she runs out of money." Vanessa shifted uncomfortably. "Marcus." "What?" "You know I'm right." Derek slammed his backpack onto the table. "She wasn't using." Marcus smirked. "That's what you want to believe." "I know my mother." Marcus stood. "No. You knew who she wanted you to think she was." The room fell silent. Vanessa reached for Marcus's arm. "That's enough." Marcus pulled away. "I'm done talking about it." He grabbed his keys and headed toward the door. As he stepped outside, he looked back at Derek. If she wanted to be found, she would have called. The front door slammed shut. Derek stood frozen. Vanessa quietly slid a plate toward him. "You should eat." "I'm not hungry." "You haven't eaten since yesterday." "I said I'm not hungry." She nodded and carried the plate back to the sink. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Vanessa said softly, "I'm sorry." Derek didn't answer. He picked up his backpack and walked out the front door. The Memphis Police Department smelled like old coffee and paperwork. Officer James Carter looked up as Derek approached the front desk. "You all right, son?" "My mum's missing." Carter immediately stood. "Come with me." A few minutes later, they sat across from one another in a small interview room. Officer Carter opened a notebook. "Start from the beginning." Derek nodded. "My mom disappeared sometime last night." "When was the last time you saw her?" "After dinner." "What time?" "Around 8. "What was she wearing?" Derek opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He blinked. His mind went blank. He could picture her face, her smile, her voice, but her clothes. Nothing. Officer Carter waited patiently. "I don't remember." Carter simply wrote something in his notebook. "No problem." "Was she carrying anything?" "Her purse." "You sure?" "Yeah." "I watched her grab it." Again. Officer Carter wrote something down. "Any reason she'd leave?" Derek hesitated. "My dad thinks..." He swallowed. "He thinks she started using again." "What do you think?" "No." The answer came quickly, too quickly. "I think something happened." Officer Carter closed his notebook. "We'll look into it." He reached into his pocket and handed Derek a business card. "If anything comes back to you," he paused, "no matter how small, I want you to call me." Derek nodded. "I will." School felt different. Students laughed in the hallways. Lockers slammed. Teachers called out reminders about homework. Everything looked exactly the way it always had. Derek adjusted the straps of his backpack and smiled as he walked toward the science wing. He pulled open the robotics lab door. The room was empty. Dust covered every table. His smile faded. He stepped inside. "Mr. Franklin?" Silence. He walked farther into the room. An unfinished robot sat in the corner exactly where he'd left it. He laughed nervously. "I must be early." A voice behind him startled him. "You lost?" Derek turned. A custodian stood in the doorway holding a mop. "What?" "This room's been locked for months." Derek frowned. "No. I have club today." The custodian looked confused. "Kid, there ain't been no club." "Not since..." He stopped himself. Derek stared at him. "What do you mean?" The custodian glanced at the robot in the corner. "You should probably head to class." Derek slowly backed out of the room. The hallway suddenly felt much louder than before. As he turned the corner, he stopped. Across the hall stood a man in a charcoal suit. Perfect posture, white dress shirt, black tie. A lit cigar rested between his fingers. The ember glowed. He smiled. Wide, too wide. Derek blinked. The bell rang. Students flooded the hallway between them. When the crowd cleared, the man was gone. Only a small pile of grey cigar ash remained where he'd been standing. Officer James Carter pulled into the faculty parking lot just before noon. The school looked ordinary enough. Students shuffled between classes while teachers stood in the hall, keeping an eye on the noise. Nothing about the building suggested anything unusual. Inside the front office, the principal greeted him with a tired smile. "Officer Carter." He shook his hand. "I'm sorry we had to meet under these circumstances. I'm just hoping someone here might know where Evelyn Howard could have gone." The principal nodded. "We'll help however we can." They sat inside his office. Carter flipped open his notebook. "I understand Derek attends school here." The principal leaned back in his chair. "He does." "How's he been handling everything?" The principal hesitated. "I don't think he's handling it at all." Carter expected that answer. What he didn't expect was everything that followed. "Derek told me STEM has been keeping him busy." The principal frowned. "STEM?" "Yes. He said he's still participating." The principal slowly removed a folder from his desk. I'm afraid that's not true. He slid the folder across the desk. Inside was an incident report. Across the top, Student Conduct Review. Below it, Derek Howard. He was removed from the program 3 months ago. Officer Carter looked up. For what? The principal sighed. A fight. He nearly killed another student. Silence filled the room. Carter looked back at the report. I spoke with Derek this morning. He never mentioned any of this. I'm not surprised. The principal folded his hands together. The Derek you met isn't the Derek we've been seeing. What do you mean? He used to be one of the brightest students in this school. Top 5 in his class. Perfect attendance. Robotics. Math competitions. He had colleges already contacting him. What changed? The principal looked toward the window. I wish I knew. He stopped talking to people. Started skipping class. His grades collapsed. When he did show up, he looked lost. Officer Carter quietly wrote another note. Lost? The principal nodded, like he expected to see people who weren't there. Carter stopped writing. What do you mean by that? We've caught him standing outside the robotics lab talking to himself. He insists the club still meets. But the room's been locked ever since the incident. Carter remembered Derek's confidence earlier that morning. I have club today. The words echoed in his head. Anything else? The principal hesitated again. There is one thing. What is it? He spends a lot of time in the woods. The woods? Behind the football field. He'll disappear for hours. When teachers finally find him, he's always sitting in the same spot. Doing what? The principal swallowed. Talking. To who? We don't know. The nurse's office smelled faintly of disinfectant. Officer Carter stood beside a teenage boy with stitches running across his left eyebrow. Ethan Brooks. The boy nodded. I heard you wanted to talk. I appreciate you taking the time. Carter pulled up a chair. I know this isn't easy. Ethan looked toward the window. It wasn't Derek. Carter raised an eyebrow. You don't believe he attacked you? Ethan laughed softly. No. I know he did. But he struggled to find the words. That wasn't my friend. Silence. Derek and I built everything together. We stayed after school almost every day. We talked about engineering schools. He wanted to build prosthetics someday. Officer Carter listened. So what happened? I don't know. One day, he just... Ethan stared at the floor. Disappeared. What do you mean? He was still sitting next to me. But he wasn't. He'd stare at empty chairs. Forget conversations we had 10 minutes earlier. He kept asking me if robotics practice was still after school. It was. Until... Ethan looked away. The fight. Officer Carter noticed Ethan's hands trembling. Do you remember what started it? Ethan closed his eyes. I made a joke. What kind of joke? I asked if he was sleeping. He looked exhausted. I told him, man, if you keep disappearing like this, people are going to think you're a ghost. Ethan's voice cracked. He looked at me like he didn't know who I was. School had ended an hour ago. Derek walked toward the woods behind the football field. The farther he walked, the quieter the world became. Traffic disappeared. The sound of students faded behind him. Leaves rustled overhead. He reached the familiar tree stump, sat down, closed his eyes. I know you're out there. Nothing. I know you're alive. The wind answered. Then, a single flake of cigar ash drifted onto his knee. Derek's eyes snapped open. Mr. Chelsea stood 20 feet away between two oak trees. hands folded behind his back. The cigar burned steadily. The smile was gone. For several long moments, neither of them spoke. Finally, Mr. Chelsea broke the silence. "You came back," Derek stood. "What do you want from me?" Mr. Chelsea tilted his head. "Nothing." "Then leave me alone." "I can't." "Why?" A faint smile crept across his face. "Because you're finally beginning to see." Derek's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." Mr. Chelsea chuckled. "No, you don't." He turned and began walking deeper into the woods. Without looking back, he spoke one last time. "When you're ready," his voice echoed between the trees. "Follow the ash." The cigar ember glowed once, then darkness swallowed him whole. Only a thin grey trail remained on the forest floor. Part 4. Derek couldn't stop thinking about the trail of ash, even after he left the woods. He found himself glancing over his shoulder. Every drifting leaf looked like a man in a charcoal suit. Every whiff of smoke made his stomach tighten. By the time he reached home, the feeling hadn't gone away. Marcus was already in the driveway. Vanessa carried grocery bags toward the front porch. Marcus pointed at Derek. "Help her." Derek walked past him. "I wasn't talking to the wind." "I'm tired," Marcus scoffed. "Tired? You don't do anything." Vanessa tried to hand Derek one of the bags. "I've got it." "I said I got it." She quietly pulled the bag back. Marcus slammed the trunk shut. "That's exactly what I'm talking about." Derek turned. "What?" "This attitude." "What attitude?" Marcus stepped closer. "You act like the whole world's against you." "My mom's missing." "And?" Derek blinked. "And?" Marcus folded his arms. "What do you want me to do? Cry? Pace around the house?" She made her choice. "You don't know that." "I know enough." "No. You don't want to know." Marcus laughed. "You sound just like her." Derek frowned. "What does that mean?" "Always chasing excuses." "When life got hard," Marcus shrugged. She ran. Derek's fists tightened. "Stop talking about her." "Why? You think she's some kind of saint?" "You weren't there before she got clean." "I was. I remember." Marcus shook his head. "No. You remember what you want." The words hit Derek harder than they should have. For a brief moment, the room tilted, his ears rang, somewhere in the distance. He heard a match strike. Then, the unmistakable smell of cigar smoke. Derek looked toward the hallway. Mr. Chelsea stood perfectly still beside the staircase, watching, smiling. Marcus kept talking. "Are you even listening?" Derek couldn't answer. Mr. Chelsea slowly lifted one hand, then pointed toward the basement door. That night, Officer Carter sat alone at his desk. The case file remained open in front of him. He wasn't looking at Evelyn's information anymore. He was looking at Derek's, his attendance records, behavior reports, medical notes from the school nurse. Every page told the same story. A brilliant student, slowly disappearing. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Another officer leaned into the doorway. "You still here?" Carter nodded. "Something bothering you?" He looked down at the file. "I think this kid believes every word he's telling me." The officer frowned. So? "So either everyone around him is lying," he closed the folder, "or he's remembering a life that never happened." The next morning, Officer Carter returned to the school. This time he asked to see the guidance counselor. Mrs. Lawson welcomed him into her office. "I wish I had better news." Carter sat across from her. "I just want to understand Derek." She opened a drawer and removed a thin folder. "He used to come here almost every week." "For counseling?" She nodded, mostly after his outbursts. Carter looked up. Outbursts. Mrs. Lawson sighed. They'd happen so suddenly. Then afterward, he'd cry. He'd apologize. And every single time, he'd ask me the same question. What question? She looked out her office window. Did I really do that? Silence settled between them. He never remembered. That afternoon, Derek stood outside his mother's bedroom. The door hadn't been opened since she disappeared. Marcus had forbidden anyone from touching it. Not out of love, out of convenience. One less room to clean. Derek slowly turned the knob. The familiar scent of lavender greeted him. Everything was exactly where she'd left it. The bed was still unmade. Her favorite sweater rested over the chair. A novel sat open on the nightstand. He smiled through tears. You'll come back. He whispered it like a prayer. As he reached for the sweater, a flake of grey ash landed on the sleeve. Then another, then another. His smile vanished. He slowly turned toward the bedroom mirror. Mr. Chelsea stood behind him, not smiling, not moving, just watching. Derek spun around. The room was empty. He looked back at the mirror. Mr. Chelsea was still there. Only in the reflection. He raised one finger, not toward Derek, toward the closet. Then, he was gone. The bedroom fell silent once more. Derek stared at the closet door. His hand trembled as he reached for the knob. Before he could touch it, Marcus's voice thundered from downstairs. Derek! He froze. The moment was broken. He looked back at the mirror. Mr. Chelsea had disappeared. Only grey cigar ash rested beneath the closet door, waiting. Marcus stood at the bottom of the stairs. I've called your name 3 times. Derek quickly shut his mother's bedroom door. What? Marcus narrowed his eyes. What were you doing in there? Nothing. I told you to leave that room alone. Derek brushed past him. I wasn't hurting anything. Marcus watched him disappear down the hallway. For a moment, he almost said something else. Instead, he walked outside. That night, sleep never came. Every time Derek closed his eyes, he saw Mr. Chelsea standing in the mirror, watching, waiting. Around 2 a.m, he gave up. The house was silent. Marcus and Vanessa were asleep. Derek quietly made his way back to his mother's room. The bedroom felt colder than before. He looked toward the mirror. Nothing. He slowly walked to the closet, his fingers wrapped around the doorknob. He hesitated, then opened it. Boxes, winter coats, old shoes, nothing unusual. He laughed quietly. I'm losing it. As he turned to leave, something caught his eye. A small spiral notebook tucked behind a stack of blankets. He reached for it. The cover simply read, Derek. His stomach tightened. He sat on the bedroom floor and opened it. March 8th. Derek came home with bruised knuckles. He says he fell at school. I don't believe him. When I asked what happened, he cried, then asked me why his hand hurt. April 2nd. Another blackout. He doesn't remember yelling. I wish Marcus would stop pretending everything is fine. April 19th, principal called again. They want him evaluated. He insists everyone is lying to him. I don't know how to convince him they're not. May 10th. Today was different. He looked at me and asked why I was crying. I wasn't, not until he asked. The pages blurred. Derek shook his head. No. This isn't real. He slammed the notebook shut. His breathing quickened. My mom wouldn't write this. A voice answered from behind him. Wouldn't she? Derek spun around. Mr. Chelsea stood in the bedroom doorway. No smile, no cigar in his hand. Just smoke, curling lazily around him. You wrote that. Derek backed away. No. You know she didn't. I said no. Mr. Chelsea slowly stepped into the room. You've spent months telling yourself a beautiful story. Another step. You were the perfect student. Another. You had your future. Another. Everyone loved you. Derek covered his ears. Stop! Mr. Chelsea stopped walking. His smile slowly returned. I haven't said anything untrue. The next afternoon, Officer Carter parked outside the Howard residence. He wasn't there to question Derek. He wanted to speak with Marcus. Marcus answered the door holding a beer. You the detective? Officer. Whatever. Carter introduced himself. I'd like to ask a few questions about Evelyn. Marcus sighed dramatically. Thought we already covered this. I just need a few minutes. Marcus stepped aside. Fine. Inside the house. Carter noticed something immediately. Family photographs lined the hallway. Every picture of Evelyn had been removed. Only faint rectangles remained where the frames had once hung. He stopped. Where are the photos? Marcus looked over. Oh. I boxed them up. Why? Marcus shrugged. No point staring at somebody who ain't coming back. You seem awfully certain. Marcus took a drink. I knew her. She always had one foot out the door. Carter studied him. Did she? Marcus nodded. Always. A long silence passed. Then Carter asked quietly, when was the last time you actually looked for your wife? Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he changed the subject. You think Derek told you the truth? Carter frowned. I think Derek believes he did. Marcus chuckled. You'll figure him out. Officer Carter looked toward the staircase. What does that mean? Marcus stared into his beer. He's always forgetting things. Another drink. Always has. Silence. His mama never wanted to admit it. As Carter walked back to his patrol car, something made him stop. The woods behind the school stretched across the horizon. For just a second, he thought he saw someone standing between the trees. A man. Dark suit, perfect posture. When Carter looked again, no one was there. He shook his head. Long day. He climbed into his cruiser and drove away. Deep inside the woods, Mr. Chelsea watched the patrol car disappear. The ember of his cigar glowed brightly. A smile slowly spread across his face. The right questions, he whispered to himself, always take the longest. The trail of cigar ash stretched farther than it ever had before. Derek followed it without speaking. The deeper he walked into the woods, the quieter Memphis became. No traffic, no birds, no wind, just his footsteps and the slow crunch of ash beneath his shoes. Finally, Mr. Chelsea stopped. Before them stood an old maintenance shed hidden beneath vines and overgrown brush. The faded words on the side were barely visible. Property of Wilbert County Schools. Derek looked at the building. I've been here before. Mr. Chelsea didn't answer. His cigar burned quietly between his fingers. I don't remember this. You do? I don't? You do. Silence. Then, Mr. Chelsea pointed toward the rusted door. Open it. Derek stared at him. What's inside? You. The answer made no sense. His hands trembled as he reached for the handle. It wouldn't move. He pulled harder. The rusted hinges groaned. The smell hit him first. His stomach twisted. No, he whispered. No. Inside the shed sat old desks, broken lockers, rotting boxes, covered by a weathered blue tarp. Was something human. Derek couldn't breathe. His legs gave out beneath him. He crawled forward anyway. Every movement felt impossible. No. His shaking hand reached for the tarp. I don't want to. Mr. Chelsea remained outside. I know. I can't. I know. Derek squeezed his eyes shut, then pulled. The tarp slid away. Everything stopped. His mother, still wearing the same clothes she'd worn the night they argued. Her necklace, the one she'd worn every day since he was little. Her wedding ring, still on her finger. Derek's scream echoed through the woods. No! He wrapped his arms around her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Tears streamed onto her jacket. His body shook uncontrollably. Then, the memories returned, not one at a time, all at once. The phone call from school, the argument, the appointment card, the shattered coffee mug. His mother reaching for him, his arm jerking away. The sound of her head striking the counter. Silence, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Checking for a pulse. Finding none. Panic. Dragging her into his father's truck while Marcus worked the night shift. Driving without thinking. Stopping behind the abandoned maintenance shed. Carrying her inside, promising through tears. I'll come back. I'll fix this. I'll make it right. Then, darkness. His mind had buried everything. Every lie. Every false memory. Every imagined school day. Every robotics meeting. Every perfect grade. Every hopeful future. All of it. Built to protect him from this moment. Derek collapsed beside his mother. I left you here. His voice barely escaped his lips. I left you here. Mr. Chelsea quietly stepped inside the doorway. For the first time, he looked at Derek, not with amusement, not with satisfaction, with pity. You finally came back. Derek couldn't lift his head. I didn't know. I know. I thought... He choked on the words. I thought she left me. Mr. Chelsea slowly shook his head. No. You left yourself. Silence filled the shed. Then Mr. Chelsea extended one hand. Come. The world dissolved. The cold shed disappeared. Warm sunlight replaced it. Children laughed somewhere nearby. Music drifted through the air. Derek stood in the middle of a neighborhood cookout. Across the yard, he saw another version of himself. Confident, smiling, alive. Ethan tossed him a football. You still owe me a rematch. The other Derek laughed. In your dreams. Nearby, a table overflowed with robotics trophies. One plaque read, State Robotics Champion. Another, valedictorian Aria, walked across the yard carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. She kissed Derek on the cheek. You promised you'd take a day off, he laughed. After one more project. She rolled her eyes. You always say that. They walked toward the porch together. Then, Evelyn stepped outside, healthy, happy. She smiled exactly the way Derek remembered. Dinner's getting cold. The other Derek hugged her, without fear, without guilt, without goodbye. Our Derek watched from a distance, his eyes filled with tears. That, he whispered, was supposed to be my life. Mr. Chelsea stood beside him. No. He looked towards the family. It was the life you never stopped grieving. Everything slowly faded. The laughter, the music, the sunlight, until only the 2 of them remained. Mr. Chelsea looked down at the cigar. For the first time, the ember went dark. He brushed the last bit of ash from his fingertips. It ends here. Derek looked at him. Who are you? Mr. Chelsea smiled, not the impossible smile, not the frightening one. Just a quiet smile worn by someone older than memory itself. I'm the man people meet. He looked toward the empty woods. When the truth has nowhere left to hide. The wind carried away the last of the cigar ash. Mr. Chelsea disappeared. He did not fade. He did not vanish. He simply wasn't there anymore. Hours later, Officer James Carter stepped carefully through the woods after receiving reports of a teenager wandering near the abandoned maintenance buildings. Derek? No answer. He followed broken branches until he reached the shed. The door stood open. Inside, Derek sat on the floor beside his mother's body. He wasn't crying anymore. He simply held her hand. Officer Carter froze. Derek. Slowly, Derek looked up. His face was empty. I remember. Carter didn't move. I remember all of it. His voice cracked. I was trying so hard to be the person she believed I could become. He looked down at Evelyn one last time. That I forgot the person I'd become. Officer Carter quietly removed his radio. His hand trembled. He called for an ambulance, then for homicide, then he sat beside Derek. Neither of them spoke. As the first rays of morning broke through the trees, a single flake of grey cigar ash drifted across the shed floor, then disappeared into the light. Years later, people across Memphis would still whisper about the man in the charcoal suit. Some claimed he appeared after terrible tragedies. Others believed he walked among people carrying unbearable guilt. No one could ever agree on who or what Mr. Chelsea really was. But every story ended with the same question. Have you met
Mr. Chelsea?
Hope you enjoyed another dark story from Raven Crow. But before you disappear into the dark, we have a question for you. Which horror movie do you honestly think you could survive? Would you make it through A Nightmare on Elm Street and somehow stay awake long enough to escape Freddy? Could you outsmart Chucky in Child's Play? Or would you underestimate a killer doll? Would you survive Jeepers Creepers, knowing something is hunting you from the sky? Or maybe there's another horror movie you think you'd beat. Tell us which one, and more importantly, tell us why. Because everyone thinks they'd survive a horror movie until they're the one hearing footsteps or seeing something standing in the dark. Who knows? Your answer might inspire a future tape here on VHS After Midnight. Until next time, remember, the people who survive horror movies are usually the ones who never assume they're safe.